Adam, can you see my screen?
I can see you have like a Word doc or something open right now.
Yes. Okay, great.
That's it.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon. No one's here yet. Wait, 21 people are here. Okay. Everyone, we're going to wait till about 1:05 because then some people usually drift in after lunch. And we're going to do some housekeeping, and then we will get on with it. Hopefully everyone had a great Easter holiday if you're doing Easter or whatever you're doing. Hopefully you had a great weekend. We have a very exciting presentation today. This is a good opportunity to run out, fill your coffee. I wonder if I can show my webcam. Oh, you can see me now. Look at that.
Hey, there you go, James.
Such a pretty face. Okay.
Exactly. Why hide it?
All right, we are gathering. Everyone, we're just like waiting for some people to get some more people here. And then we'll do some housekeeping, and then we're going to get on with this awesome presentation. Ants. Adam, you look like a bit of a severe techie there.
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff around. I had my 3D printer and everything else I got going on too.
Yeah, all right. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
usually having the blur. Apparently, it's a third-person software you need to install to have the blur.
All right. All right, does anyone have any comments before we start?
Everyone has the ability to unmute.
Is there a chat option?
Is there a chat
There is.
option? Yes. Well, I
Okay,
think
I
you
see.
asked questions, right?
Questions. Gotcha. All right. Cool. Thanks.
All right, since I have you all in attendance and paying attention, we're always looking for presenters. So even if if you're doing some super cool stuff, or even if you're not, even if you're doing stuff where you want to learn about things and ask questions, we would love to have you present. I guarantee that we all learn something from everyone's presentation. There's not one that's gone by where I haven't learned something personally. So everyone does something a little bit differently. And there's thousands of ways to do things, or thousands of tools available to you. Or maybe not thousands, but so definitely hundreds, maybe more than 8 at least. So there you go. All right, and so we really want to get some more presenters. This year, we're going to do this every month. Well, we've been doing it every month for about 3 years. Our content's very, very good, and actually, we're really hoping that you could just show us what you're up to, right? And even if it's just doing a demonstration as to what your organization is doing, doesn't necessarily have to be water. It can be whatever you choose it to be. All right, so 1:04, we're going to make 1 more minute, and then we're going to start. Does anyone have any questions before we start? Anyone can unmute if you're interested. Jared, did you have something to say? No. Oh, good. Jared from Altamonte. Okay, great. We used to have other people from Altamonte here. So that's good. Okay. I'm going to run off the names just to say hello to everyone. Can everyone see the names of the attendees?
No.
No, they cannot.
Oh, they cannot? Okay.
No.
There's 42 people so far, right? Which is pretty good. Alex Baker, Palm Beach County. Alex Peaker, 1898 and Company. Ali Byrne, how are you doing, Ali? Good to see you. Thanks for coming from Orlando. Amir Khan, Hollywood, doing asset management for Hollywood. Eamon Abdu from Weston. Brandon from Key Largo, he's presented before. Chad from Coconut Creek, welcome. Chris from Oakland Park, welcome back. Thanks for attending. Kristen from Florida Keys Aqueduct, she's presented before. So it's not hard to present, right? She actually did a fantastic presentation. I've still got notes I'm going through from her presentation. Chris Barda, North Miami Beach. Cody from Charlotte County, great. Danny from Palm Beach County, nice to see you again. Evan Myers, I forget where Evan's from, but it's Gmail. We got Boca Raton in the house. We got Hillsborough County, Altamonte, Fort Pierce Utility Authority, Charlotte County, Lake Clark. Hey, Jeremiah, it's been a while. Good to see you. I think you're always here. We got, Jessica from Florida Keys. So, if you ever have to learn more about utilities and GIS for utilities, Florida Keys Aqueduct Authority is really, really advanced, and they're in Key West. So you can have people pay for the trip down to the Keys. All right. We got Joe Stevenson from CSID, Jonathan Weiss from R&M Services, Joe Gallo from Charlotte County, Julie from CSID, Kelsey from Mokoe, good to see you. We had your email in here incorrectly before, so that's great.
Yeah, thank you for correcting that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah, somehow it got weird. Maybe there was an old one in there. ci.okoe is what it was. All right.
Yeah, we just had a change, so thank you.
So I'm not sure if I can make this bigger because I'm sharing my screen. You should be able to see it. Anyway, it's pretty good turnout. I can go through the rest of the names. I mean, if you're happy to hear your name, Charlotte County, Kyle from Pasco here, Fort Myers, Manny, good to see you. Maria from Dania, hi Maria, she presented, right? Matt from Miramar, Matt, I'm expecting you to present pretty soon. Miami-Dade, Dallas, Pilar from Esri, nice to meet you. Randy, sorry. Say what? Say what? Say what?
Only say hi.
Oh, okay. Great. Randall.
Thank you.
Randall, we're hoping that Esri will kind of give us some big guns on utility networks at some point. But thanks for attending. We're just going to kind of run with it ourselves a little bit. Stefan did a presentation before on irrigation. Fantastic presentation. Stephanie from Altamonte Springs. Taylor from Pasco. Thomas from Charlotte. Victor from SUA, that is Seacoast. Victor from Seacoast, cool. Walt from Pembroke Pines, Wayne from Pasco County, Yancel from North Miami, and Yan Yao from Miramar. I think I got everybody. Look, that's a very good, what do you say? Like, it's a lot of people from a lot of places all here to see Adam. So there you go, Adam. No pressure, right? Okay, let's just go through our, whatchamacallit, housekeeping. Okay, so today is April 24th, 2025. We're always looking for presenters. So I might get a little bit more aggressive and just make you present and just sign you up if you don't volunteer. The next user meeting group is in June, because we're not going to do May, because May is traditionally the FWRC. This year it's in West Palm. Randall, if there's any, and Randall has a question. Sorry, let's just answer Randall's question. Okay. So yeah, Randall will also, so what we're going to be talking about today. So Randall's question is, can we get a presentation today? They said, yes, we can. Give us 30 days. So what I think we're going to do, focus on this year a little bit, is the utility network. I know that Esri is doing a parallel meetup about that, but we got to, anyway, so we want to kind of like talk a lot about the data that's required for it and how your organization is structured. You know, there's the Esri tools, but then how do you really implement them and who gets what email and who goes out there and turns what valves and that kind of thing. Like the integration into the organization is really the key to that, the success of that. And I'm going to give you an example because I'll tell you how it's not great. and then you'll see how it's supposed to be better. Okay. So Randall, the other thing, if there's any other S3 based conferences coming up that are regional or anywhere, please let us know and we'll add them to this list so people are aware. The next, I think, big one, I think last month was, or April, early April, was the Southeast User Group in Georgia, Atlanta. And the next one, big one, is the S3 User Group or User Conference. But, you know, we'd like to, we could even throw in the meetups here for certain utility specific things. I'm not familiar with every single thing going on. So anyone that has any information about a local user group for GIS, or people that want to get involved in this, like send them the email, send us an email, and the more people involved, the better. Okay. Florida Rural Waters in July in Daytona. There's a GIS conference, a free one in West Palm Beach in August. It's a very big one. Central Florida is Daytona in September. Shrug, I think it's Shrug in Tallahassee. I've never been, but I think that's sometime in November. And Southwest Florida is in Fort Myers, and that's usually in December. Other events. So the APWA Expo is in April 28th to May 1st. That's Public Works in Orlando. So Public Works is very involved in utilities and GIS, and sometimes the Public Works Department runs the utilities, so it's all very related. Sometimes utilities run stormwater. So also we have the Florida Rural Water Conference in May. No, FWRC. So that's the FWRC is the Florida Water Resource Conference. That's the big one that has like AWWA, has WEF, and it has, which WEF is more like sanitary people, and the Florida Pollutant Control Operators Association, FPCOA or something. It's like a lot of letters. I'll write them in here. But that's a great conference to go to. There's a lot of people that go to that one. That's probably the biggest water-based conference in Florida. Okay, S3 is offering site visits to utilities to go over their licensing and how their utilities are configured. So if you're interested, you can reach out to Randall for that. And if you know of anybody that wants to attend this, then please tell us and we will get them on the list. Kristen Meyer said something. Oh, there's a local one tomorrow, yes. Yes, so tomorrow actually is the Florida Keys GIS user group in Marathon at 10 a.m. So if you're interested in attending that, then send me an email and we'll get you on the list as well. Also, Randall, if your utility wants to host a user group, let us know. So can you tell us what you mean by that?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where we have, where we host basically a user group, GIS users in the water space, where they come and they present pretty much like kind of like what we're doing here. They'll present some of their work, and then we'll have a couple of partners that will be available as well to talk about what they're doing, you know, in the space in GIS. And we usually host those at a utility. So if you're interested in that, we'd be more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah, so we did one last year in April, right, in Boca Raton.
Correct.
And do you want to do one a year, two a year?
Yeah, we usually do. I mean, we could do several, but it's usually about 2 a year. I mean, but we could do more than that.
I think that we should do one in this region, like West Palm Beach, Miami, Broward region, and then one maybe in Tampa/Orlando
Gotcha.
region every twice a year, and we could strong arm somebody to host that.
Gotcha.
So Kimberly Kelly from Charlotte County. Well, there you go, right? Our first volunteer. I mean, our first sucker. I mean, no, I mean volunteer. Yeah. Okay. So that's the housekeeping today. Our presentation is Adam Savory. He's kind of with FTC. So I don't want, the one thing I don't want to do is like not have anyone present and then you're just listening to FTC or us presenting stuff. I get kind of dull pretty quick. So it's the idea is that we really need to have you guys present and show us what you're doing. So I'm going to start reaching out to people to show us your stuff. Honestly, it's going to be good. It's a little bit nerve-wracking to present, but on the other hand, it's very good for you to like take a look, step back at what you're doing, assess it, and then tell people, and then everyone sees what you're doing. And it's actually a very good thing for you to be able to convince your directors and whatnot that, hey, this is what we're doing in GIS, and let them see it. And this is if you're presenting to utilities, this is a very good soft market to present to, because everyone's kind of on your side, and we don't judge, not out loud anyway. But no, but two, we could even help guide you towards what the utility directors want you to provide to them as far as GIS people that are trying to implement. So we're here to help in several different capacities. With that said, I wanted to introduce the utility network. And Adam, the first thing I wanted to do, I'm going to say this, was show you what this thing looked like 15 years ago, right? Because this utility network's been around for a long time, but it was kind of limited capability. Like you could have your data in a desktop in an office somewhere, or in somebody in a closet somewhere, and they'd be, if your GIS was set up properly, you could go in and typically click on a line and do an isolation trace, and it would be able to tell you which valves to shut. So let's just see if this runs. It does run. Okay, cool. It shows you there's a water main break, right? And we have all the meters in the system, and this is like from 15 years ago, trust me. All the meters are connected to the main line through a service line. We have the hydrants, and this is the very old hydrant layer because it's directly connected to the main lines, which isn't exactly right, but for this purpose, it's fine. It gives you the valves that you have to shut down, and it gives you a little polygon that you can use for outage management. And you can use, but this is someone sitting at their desktop in an office that has to process this, right? Know exactly where the break is, and then you can output. These all come kind of out in shape files, and so you can output the water connections, so you can figure out where you have to put flyers. So you have the addresses, you have the valves that have to be shut down, so you have valve numbers, and you have hydrants that are going to be down for the duration of that break, which is very good to tell the fire department. The thing this didn't do very well was really like exchange this information with the field, and this is like long before ArcGIS Online, or a lot of third-party softwares like iWater and Innovise use this technology and use this in their processes. But this is kind of where it starts. So I just wanted to give you a background as to what this thing used to be able to do. It still does it. This is still MAP, as you can see. But now we're migrating to the pro environment. We're heavily involved with being able to do this from the field at some capacity. And we are working towards that with this data set that we had, which was one of the few data sets we had that actually had all the meters connected. And there was 26,000 meters that we did. And I was telling them that you do anything 26,000 times, and that's a challenge. So I'm not going to tell you where this is because I was told not to tell you, but this is like a local municipality, and that's the data set that Adam's been using to build this out. And what we want to do is work together to learn how this thing runs, what it can do, how to implement it, and help organizations try to get this thing running. So I will turn it over to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Any questions on what I showed you? I don't see any. At the end of this, we're going to send out an email to everybody. So you've got everyone's email address that's attended this meeting, okay? So you can, anyone that's on this meeting, you'll have their contacts, you can reach out directly. And especially if you want to work with Randall to set up a regional user group, that would be fantastic. We can help you with that as well. Okay, I'm going to turn it over. Any questions before I turn it over? All right, Adam, you're up.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to wait a minute for my screen sharing to be enabled. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna set this up and I'm going to pick monitor 3. So, good morning, afternoon to everybody. My name is Adam Savory. I am in Canada. I'm further east than all of you. I'm over on the Atlantic side. Just a quick coverage of me, just so before we get into it. I worked as Canadian Signals Intelligence for about 14 years. You can look me up. I've gotten awards and all this other good stuff. But the biggest thing was during my intelligence days, I discovered GIS. The Canadian Forces have their own GIS trade. So this was kind of a unfamiliar adoption. And by doing so, I managed to do a lot of really interesting and fun things. And then I left to go further my education on GIS because I loved it so much. Moved back home, went to several courses, including a new pilot program within the Center of Geographic Sciences, focusing on machine learning, AI, big data, that kind of stuff. And that is loosely how I met James, is through, I did a project on Florida and FEMA and storm damages and so on and so forth. And then it was like 1 million points of lines and we tried to make it into 35 total. So this is data integration, data migration. These are all things that I'm very familiar with, especially when I used to work in the TS secret side of the world where like data had to be scrubbed and so on and so forth. But this all led me to discovering my newest passion, which is utility networks. So also there's going to be time for questions at the end. I have a slide specifically for questions. And so let's get cracking into it. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with the utility network, Savory Utility Network, it effectively is just a data structure. We're going to be showing a little bit more of it, but effectively it is a rule-based structure that covers everything within its containment, and it is and when it is all built and assembled by rules and connectivity associations and other terms that I'm going to cover very briefly, this then can be deployed as a complete set and onto your enterprise solution. And then we're going to talk about the sharing and so on and so forth about that. So the utility network, again, is not, while we're going to be using a water data set and water utility for this situation, it can be applied to a number of other utilities, as you can see on my slide here. The idea is that this then represents real life data. That's the biggest thing. The demo I'll be showing you is based on real data from a city that we took from the old style of GN and several layers that are all individually not connected to something that is a little bit more, well, it runs on the topology rules of everything working together. And then finally, like James has spoken about, the idea that while I'm going to be showing you is a desktop application, that the utility network now has the capability of expanding much further than that and getting into field maps on your phone or web services. And also there's a lot of versioning so that you can update and change things and work in a collaborative environment and not have to worry about data disruption or governance as much. So my next slide. There we go. So again, in a general oversense, what is like a utility network? A utility network is just a data model. It exists for those familiar to be within a feature data set within your structure. I'll be showing that in a little bit. But the idea is that it represents everything connected and it works on rules so that you can see, you'll very quickly find out if something is not working or disconnected. You get that warning indication, and then you can go back and correct them as well. It provides, the biggest thing though is the providing of the functionality within the UN. Things such as modifying terminal connections, displaying which pipe goes in, which pipe goes out. These are very minute micro rules that you can apply on a macro level across your entire network. But also the fact that this is, I'll be showing you several tools, but a lot of them are customizable to fit your city's requirements. And the idea is that it does have these seamless data integration, seamless platform integration, which allows you to, again, like I discussed, to be able to edit as a collective and have these versioning courses, or to expand and then to give out to others, and then you can see the operability between field maps and real-time data and things being updated in real time, and having that be a benefit for decision making and reaction time. So a lot of cool, I'm going to say there's a lot of really interesting things about the utility network, and we can't cover them all. If you want to know more, you can certainly ask me at any time, and I will gladly talk about all the other interesting facets and functionalities and so on and so forth. But today we're focusing on a couple of individual topics that, much like the utility network, are not isolated. They're not, these all do work in conjunction with each other. So if you see something that sort of hits your niche, but it's not quite what you want, again, these are all customizable, and we can kind of get to where we need to get to with that. So the big thing I'm showing off today is the tracing capabilities and how that compares to what James has demonstrated. The idea that it's quicker, it's faster, it allows you to make decisions, and you can, there's more than one type of trace capability. I'll show them when we run the demonstration, but not only are you pre-built as a utility network customer within ArcGIS with 8 unique tracing capabilities, but then you can also build your own your own tracing configuration, which is, again, something I'll be showing off in a minute. But the idea is that these can be worked together, and while a picture doesn't quite do it justice, that it's still good. So another facet of the utility network is the idea of containments and associations. There's a lot of, the utility network is based basically on a set of rules. And some of these rules are the containment and associations. Now, everything is connected, has an association to another valve or pipe, and you can review these associations to find connectivity issues or so on and so forth. But then additionally, containment is its own unique thing, where if you can see in the image here, these reflect the same thing. Within a utility network, you can have containers where you can have, for example, in this case, the transformer bank, where those are individual assets that are being accounted for and mapped. However, if you didn't want to see that, if you wanted to look at a more broad view of your city, you can close that containment, and it'll just be a data point that can be expanded upon if you require. These are great for things like network structures built around that, like maybe an energy transformer setup and so on and so forth, where every individual asset is accounted for. However, you don't necessarily need that mapped. And the idea is that we're going to be delivering it's a comprehensive, I like that term, comprehensive digital twin of your utility network. You can see all your assets, all the values are there. And as I'm going to show through the migration process, values that you've had previously either carry over into new fields or can be accounted for and included in the updated version. One of the bigger things that I stress about the utility network and its capabilities is the fact that it is able to be exported to both online and mobile applications using field maps and other, and as you can see, the other applications as well. The idea that the trace configuration, which I'm going to be showing off again, is included in that deployment, so that when a field map individual or field worker is in there and looking at it, they can run their own trace. Or you could have a situation where someone in back home is running the trace and then changing the values of the valves that need to be changed, and that field worker can go in real time and say, I've closed this valve, I've closed that valve, this thing has been accounted for, there is a breakage here, etc. And because we can because it deploys on enterprise solution, you can have that multi-user functionality and still have the ability to edit and modify and so on and so forth without worrying about one of your employees deleting the entire thing by accident and now everything's broken. The major thing is, like, the update cycles, I'm not overly familiar with the old system. I've kind of jumped in at Pro back when I was in my intelligence days, so I haven't got a lot of experience with ArcMap and the limited functionalities that came up with that structure. However,
Boo!
I know. In Pro, however, it's all just faster and reduces the size of these data sets. I don't know how big James's data set was when he did ArcMap, but we're going to see that the way that these things are structured, it's a lot more precise and connected. Now, the big thing is the scary factor that everyone is worried about, which is migrating your legacy data into this new structure. And it can seem intimidating and complicated, but it's actually not nearly as bad as you think it is. We have done this several times now with larger data sets. The thing I'll be showing you is a smaller data set just for the sake of making it easier to display. However, we've done data sets with 50,000 plus customers, so on and so forth. And the process is exactly the same. It's just a case of communicating with the customer to find out what exactly they're trying to represent with this data set, and then making sure that it is accurately represented within the utility network. So the quick 5-step process is effectively we review your data, we figure out what's supposed to be what and what is connected to what, and we design the ability to do that within the structure itself. So we'll assign certain values to certain things, and then those rules of pre-existing rules based on templates can be applied, and typically those cover most needs. However, beyond that, then you can go in and modify those pre-existing structures to then incorporate your own rule or association and so on and so forth. Then we do a schema mapping, like I discussed before, where we can look at your fields and say your manufacturing field needs to go in the manufacturing UN fields. However, you have another one that says, Jeff, when did Jeff last update this? That will be its own field, and that can be included. And we just have that discussion with you, figuring out exactly what fields you need and which ones are necessarily just maybe even blanks that are not getting the love they need. And then we load that into the topographic structure, and I go in and I make sure that everything is configured and built the way it works. And the brilliant thing I like about the utility network is that it either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, I will know, and I will know what the problem is, and I will fix it. And then from there, we can then
Actually,
enable it.
I just want to say in the other data set as well, like doing these utility networks is a great way to find out if your data is perfect, because if your data is not perfect, it doesn't run. So,
100%.
you know.
Exactly. We had a situation where we had some valves that were overlapping with hydrant connection valves, and that showed up, and everything had to be moved just a smidge to the left or the right. But I was able to do that and then confirm that everything works and is functional the way I want it to. And it will not publish to the utility, or it will not publish to the enterprise platform unless it is working properly. And then finally, again, like almost like perfectly mentioning it, it cannot go onto the network without being right and working. And then I will show you later on sort of what is being uploaded and the including factors and so on and so forth. Because if you were to look at my side, which I'll be showing you, there's a lot of tables involving rules and assets and da-da-da-da, but you don't necessarily have to deal with that. That's going to be something where when you look at it on your phone or on your mobile device or on your web interface or even on ArcGIS Pro, you're going to see more of a complete package that just works. And then again, we test this, we'll test the tracing capabilities. Everything is going to do exactly what you want it to do when it gets into your database. So enough fun and toys, let's show the demonstration. So the idea is I'm going to run you through a quick idea of sort of the structure of the utility network so you can kind of see the simplicity of it in its own unique way. I'm going to show you some connectivities and how everything kind of lines up. And then I'm going to run a trace just so you can kind of see what that looks like. So with that in mind, everyone can still see my my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. This is my utility network for this one area. You can see that everything is placed down. I built it. We have a series of system valves and connection points, and then hydrants and customers. So as you can see over here on my left, a big thing about the utility network that's big is that everything is either a device, a line, a junction, or an assembly piece. And within that, so if you had a layer for system valves, a layer for service valves, a layer for fire hydrants, and a layer for service connections, like James was showing you earlier, where he had to kind of engage each individual table to see the results of that thing. These are all one table where everything I want is here. I can click my select and go, and then I can see the fire hydrants and the systems and so on and so forth. And then my lines, you get the idea. There are only 4 tables you need to concern yourself with. You'll see here they have the structure values. Those are just included with every single utility network. However, if you're doing a water network, you'll have a water subtype. If you're doing a gas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as you can see, everything is nice and connected and works exactly how we want it to. And there are no issues with connectivity, so on and so forth, because if there were, I would have these giant red squares showing me what the problem is. Now I'm going to hit a trace over here. I'm going to go pick something. Let's say, I know I'm going to pick something arbitrary. Let's pick that. So you can see here, I have chosen my starting point, and I am showing off my trace configurations. Now in this situation, I talked about it before, where there are 8 included tracing types. And within that, you can then customize them even further so that it does exactly what you want to. It stops on the right valves you want to. It assigns the right values, and so on and so forth. And then I just run that. And I just want to kind of note how much faster that was than what James was doing, not to challenge James's logic. I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to pick up one with a little bit more stuff to show off. Let's say here. I'm done. And now we can say, like, this is simulating a real world example of a valve breaking and then showing the customers that are affected. Now, again, like James did, you can go through and find out what is broken. But instead of engaging multiple tables and trying to make that a big complicated thing, I now have my fire hydrant, my service connections, and my system valves. And I can see the assets that are required to fix it. However, and if I go way over here, I can also just see the addresses of my customers. There. And then this can then be exported into a table or pushed out to a customer, and enabling this in real time and having that functionality where someone could go by and then export this to make a real-time notification. Or if you are more of a GIS centric folk, this is effectively a tool that can be combined with other tools to produce what you want to produce. And there are multiple facets within this. I'm only showing off the tracing capabilities. As you can see, there are a lot of tools, and I can even go further and say within the utility network stuff, there's even more tools to make this all functional. However, in this case, we're just covering this one thing. But I just want to kind of show everybody how that looks. And again, because the network does work, this just applies down the line. So if I were to trace, clear, go back to my trace, boop, run it again, doesn't matter. And then what the great thing about this is, if I go over to my actual utility network data, this is what's being uploaded into the thing, into the enterprise solution, is all these, but then you can see all my valid devices I have. So if I want to add something like a new type of well or something like that, I can't. all my rules for how things connect, everything carries over. Additionally, that trace configuration, like the one I just ran, which is a customized trace with various filters and so on and so forth, is right there. That will export with the data set so that when it goes onto your enterprise and then you load it into your field maps or your web experience, it's there. Everything is nice and packaged and neat and easy to implement on multiple levels. I'm going to go back here and go back to my presentation. So again, we just want to I want to hit again the real hard points of the benefits here, which is that there are advanced analysis capabilities, and I've only shown just the tracing capabilities, but like I discussed, there's structural or containments. You can get into diagrams that are not as geographically focused and are more like connection points. I'm using a term from my old intelligence days, but like contact webbing, sort of, but like for customers and so on and so forth. And it allows that real-time integration and decision-making that typically would be much slower in rolling out between like home base and the field workers. Now this is almost instantaneous. And it works with so many other data, like workflows, and it can be integrated into every other tool pretty much within the ArcGIS, because it's just exporting a select features that can then be made into its own web line, so on and so forth. And then also integrating with now the AGOL's model builder that is online, that trace functionality capability as well. But also it just reduces everything. The size is smaller than having 14 layers that represents, you know, hydrants and lines. Everything is there. Everything is accounted for, and it's only in those 4 tables. So you can see the thing like is that reducing the outage frequency by 37%, getting these things out and faster and quicker. And that brings me to questions. I'll save the questions for later. I can always be reached either.
Christopher, what do you got? Christopher Bardo had a hand up.
Please.
I'm just curious about your I'm curious about your intelligence and signal intelligence days. Do you think the Five Eyes network is still operational, or
I have to kill you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of things have changed since I got out right before the pandemic. So I certainly hope so. I'm a big advocate for the Five Eyes and the structure they provide.
Yeah, there's a great book by a guy called Richard Kerbadge. Have you heard of it? The Secret History of the Five Eyes.
I have not, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, but it stops in the year.
Right now.
Okay, it stops in the year 2022.
Oh.
Well, I just wanted to say I don't see many questions, and I want to say thank you very much. I think one of the coolest things that I saw was when Innovize had the software, and they customized it to, you know, in that software to where it would break every single line, and then it would identify the number of valves that needed to get shut to isolate that piece of line. And so you'd get a whole system output, and you would know that this particular line needed 12 valves shut to isolate. And then you know that you need to put in a valve isolation program, and you can determine where to put valves. So you cannot shut 12 valves in the field to isolate a line and not lose your road. So I thought that was a super cool tool. And this is, I mean, what Adam's showing you is kind of the basics, but what you do next with it is really where the key is. It's like, how do you get this information to the guy in the field that's turning the valves to shut them? How do you make sure that if the valve gets shut, they get identified, and that way they get open the next morning if the crews switch out? So this is like one part of a overall solution that is outage management. So we want to kind of go over that, like a few more presentations this year, And that's it. I want to say thank you. And if there's no other questions or no other things to talk about, we can let everyone go. Does anyone else want to talk about anything? Okay, wait. Randall. Okay, if you need, you will need to be in an ArcGIS Pro and have an ArcGIS Enterprise server environment stood up to run ArcGIS Utility Network or have your server cloud hosted. Yes, so that is one of the things is that this is driving utilities to invest more in the GIS software. You need the higher level enterprise environment. I don't know all the terms, but you need an enterprise level to run this. But if you're going to be running this, then that's certainly worth the time and effort and the money. I mean, your data is going to be, you have to get a higher level of data in order to get better information out. But you know, you have one roadway that blows out because of a water main, and that pays for the entire thing. So it's all kind of relative. We started in one village where they had a break that took 3 days to. They couldn't isolate the valves. They didn't know where all their valves were. So that's step one. Let's find your valves and make sure that they work, right? Make sure that you know where to find them, that they're exposed and painted, and the guys at 2 o'clock in the morning would be able to go to a pond, like, because it's flooded, and find it. So those are the kind of things that this is like a great tool to tell you exactly where to go, but it's not telling you yet who to go, who to send this to go out there, and how do they report back that it got done. So this is kind of this is the meat of it, and then the frills are really the frills are like, how do you actually implement it? Okay, Kristen Meyer said, our data set isn't perfect. Would you recommend fixing the data before migrating, or would you recommend writing portions of the network to the UN until it's all there? Are you asking me? I would tell you to fix your data up front. If you're asking Adam, I'll let Adam answer.
Yeah, so effectively, we've had this issue before where we've done data sets where, for example, they gave us like 30 layers and 20 of them were empty. So effectively, there is a bit of a back and forth engaging with you about what that data is supposed to look like. And again, a perfect world, yeah, you clean it for me and it's beautiful when it drops on my door and I can just slap it in there and make everything work. But that's not the real world. So, I mean, again, cleaning it up is great. Like reducing redundant fields and so on and so forth are perfect. However, when I bring it over into the topology and start setting it up, if there are obvious errors or issues with that, that will be flagged, and then I can just engage you about that. So you're saying, for example, if you're saying this is a system valve, but I don't know, say it was 2 or 3 layers were marked incorrectly as service valves. Okay, well that's easy enough to fix. It's just a case of remigrating that a little bit and making some modifications.
Yeah, I'm really talking about like if we have a whole subdivision, kind of how you had a subdivision in an area that was clean and perfect, and we wanted to migrate that to the utility network and test it out. Would it be beneficial to do like a pilot project like that for our system, or would you recommend waiting until the entire system is complete before migrating anything?
I guess the argument would be if your goal is to basically have something to show, then I would say take the smaller network and we can work with that easily. If the goal is you already have the buy-in, you already have everything you want, and you want to move to a bigger scale, then I would say like focus on the bigger sun, and then worst case lower your expectations accordingly.
Yeah.
I like it. Good question.
Also, James,
All right.
I want to iterate on one point I didn't get to discuss, but I think it might be relevant to people.
Absolutely.
Beyond reflecting the real world assets, this also allows you to both put up concepts, like if you wanted to do some kind of like simulated outage, you can run that way. Or if you were discussing adding like another pipe, another variable, you can do that on your utility network first to see how that affects the overall flow of everything. So you can find that optimized position and then deploy it, as opposed to putting it in the real world and then trying to figure out what happened.
Good. Which agency is Adam with? Adam is with FTC currently. How much
And
time and staff resources do you estimate will be required to complete the migration of a city's water and sewer network? That is Yancel from City North Miami. Well, I just want to jump in for a second here. I just wanted to restate something to Kristen, that I think there's two things. One is if your data is perfect or if it's complete. I think that I would, before you entered anything into the network, right, the utility network, make it as clean as possible, like all the topology snapped, everything that way, beautifully done. But I wouldn't wait till you have all the neighborhoods. You can always build it and add neighborhoods later, right? So you have the framework, and then you're learning in the process as well. But I wouldn't say you had to I would never say that you had to have your entire system complete and in the GIS before you started this. But the data you do have to put in this, I would absolutely make it clean and perfect in that sense. Like make sure everything's snapped, because Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a pain in the butt to do it later, right?
Yeah, I having done
It
this.
doesn't really matter. You have to do it now or do it later, either one.
Yeah, that's my philosophy in general in life. But yeah, effectively having done the migration now of the same data set so many times, where I know more now than I did before. I've done the Esri certification courses and so on and so forth. And I started playing with it before I even got into that. So my migration process has expanded quite a bit and improved. So in that case, yeah, like you'll find the problem one way or the other. And worst case scenario, because the migration process is just assigning effectively data sets and fields, I can reopen that migration spreadsheet that I built and then modify some values and bring it back in, as opposed to going in and then having to break every pipe and then replace my pipe layers with the new broken pipe lines and so on and so forth. It's much easier to have everything looking the way you want it to and then migrating it over than it is to try to fix it after the fact. But doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just I get a lot of errors and alerts saying like, oh, you moved this one thing, everything's broken. Okay, cool.
Oh, sorry, I meant to put something else in here. You'll get Adam's email in the email that we send back out to everybody. All right, how much time and resources? I think that's a good question as to if you have somebody in your organization who can do this and dedicate 100% of their time to it, then you can click through it. But if you're like a single person or two people in an organization, you're constantly making maps for this commissioner or that commissioner and getting pulled in 6 different directions, you would probably want to get some help just to grind it out in the background. So it's kind of getting done. Otherwise, it could just take forever. That would be my opinion, but Adam, what do you think?
I think, again, it's a complexity issue. Like, again, I'm not saying that, I would say that a smaller town is obviously a lot easier to map out than a large scale thing and so on and so forth. Like the idea of having, I haven't got to do much but during our topic, but like the idea of sub networks and so on, is like having pressure zones and all these other things are capable and totally possible. It's just a case of working with a larger data set, and then larger data sets lead to more rules, which is again fine. I can't give you like a obvious number for what it is. However, if you were to engage us the way that we want to in terms of helping with that migration process, I always say like I like to hold your hand, because the migration seems big and scary, but we can make it pretty straightforward and painless. Then I can give you more of an exact example. I think some larger groups will say some astronomically large amount of time, and I haven't really even come to a fraction of that in terms of my experiences. However, I don't want to undersell it and tell you like I could do it in 24 hours. That's a little,
Okay, this is probably so Yancel. It's obviously a larger story than a quick answer. It all depends. It kind of like every engineering question, the answer is depends.
Yeah.
Do you have any clients that are synchronizing their utility network deployments with legacy data models to help the transition to full production for all business systems, keeping both database models for a period of time. That would be a question for Randall probably at Esri that has a lot more experience implementing these things on a larger scale. Randall, do you have any, can you see the questions? Alex, what I would recommend is that we circle back with your question and kind of take a look at what you're thinking about, but have Esri present to kind of give the, you might be working with Esri already.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can see the questions here, but yeah, I was just kind of curious if that was something that you were all, seeing out there. I would expect you all would be seeing that.
I will say something on that topic, which is
Okay.
one of my Esri courses, I did it with a bunch of folks from San Antonio and so forth in Texas. And effectively, they're all still kind of stuck on the legacy data. It's not uncommon now, I guess, to have someone who has done pro, coming out of school, like a recent graduate, and then showing up to a utility network over in San Antonio and finding out they're still working with ArcMap and, the GN, because they haven't had anyone to be able to do that migration. And everyone's kind of scared of losing their functionality. So in this case, it's, yeah. And so like, we're not taking anything from you. Like the data set is a copy data set that I can build out and then show it to you. It works. And then you can deploy it onto your enterprise. And then you can make that transition from services over to the other services accordingly.
Yeah. Hey, good job. I was happy to see that there was not a lot of dirty areas in that data, so that's great.
Yeah,
That's
no,
a-
I went through it with a fine-tooth comb.
I saw the service lines too that you showed. That was kind of cool. Were there any associations in that data that you showed, or were those like service lines like auto-generated? Because I saw that there was like lines to every meter drawn in.
Well, in the data set I was provided, for which I migrated over, there was a service line
Okay.
layer. So then I just effectively copied those attributes over onto that, and then I connected them to the service connection layers and the what did I call it? I think it's
Hydrophilic
yeah.
too?
No, well, water junction fittings.
Gotcha.
So
Cool.
each of those has a water junction that has a rule that allows it to connect to the service line, and then that service line has a rule that allows it to connect to residential services.
Alex, in answer to your question, you can't see my screen, but there was the utility, like it back in the map days. It was an auto-generated data set, but you had to do it kind of partial manually, right? It wouldn't go to the right line every time, so you kind of had to go line by line or neighborhood by neighborhood. And it goes fairly quickly, but again, there's 26,000 of them, and it took quite a few days, right? Even with a small village.
Yeah.
And then you have to snap it all to the network, and all the network snapping has to be correct. But what Adam found with this data set is that if you have some meters at the end of the line, right, they'll all connect to the end of that line, but that didn't work for this network. You had to spread them out, right? So you had to kind of do it even a little bit more manually to make sure that no two services were connected, I guess, how you want to put it. So that
Yeah, and again, like if that would have happened, like if there, like again, I had a valve that had the same port in and port out for whatever reason. That gave me a dirty area, is what you want to call it, like a warning that is not proper. So then I can open up my error inspector, see the error, figure out what the problem is, and fix it. And so if it's a case of overlapping stacked points, that is an error. If there are vertices from the lines that are overlapping, that is an error.
So yeah, it's a bit more rigorous than the ArcMap geodatabase network that we used to work with. All right, but I want to let everyone go before 2 o'clock. So if you have no other questions, really appreciate your time. I'm looking for presenters as always, so please let us know and have a great, maybe we'll see you at the FWRC. It's a great conference if you're in the engineering realm. Randall, hopefully you can go. Oh, Randall's left as well. Okay, thanks everyone. Adam, thank you very much.
My pleasure.